Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Manny Talks, the podcast where I talk to guys all across the shooting industry, competition, self-defense, all around. Just want to talk to them, get their insides and outs, and have a good time. Tonight, we've got my buddy Joel from Applied Performance Shooting. Um, in my opinion, he's going to be the next up-and-coming level of trainer. Pay attention. Watch out for him. He's got good stuff. Joel, how are you doing tonight, buddy?
Good, dude. All good.
Excellent.
Happy to talk to you.
Yep. So I've been following you for a while, and we've talked back and forth for a couple months now, and here and there. You've really helped me in the beginning of my dry fire training and getting into competition. It's quite nice to be able to finally sit down and talk to you about some of these things. So I appreciate taking the time out of your day to talk with me. All right. So my first question is, where'd you come from? What's your background? What got you into shooting?
All right. So non-mill, non-law enforcement, never any of that kind of stuff. Been into martial arts, boxing, wrestling, jiu-jitsu for forever, basically. From about the time I was 11 or 12, started getting into that kind of stuff. And long time before I got into pistols or firearms or any of that stuff. Really haven't been doing all that very long in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So really the way I got into shooting is I shot skeet at a bachelor party with all my buddies, and they were just better at it. And I was like, dude, I don't like to be bad at anything. So plus it's really fun. And honestly, that's what started it. Was, all right, I'm going to order a shotgun, start shooting skeet, having a good time with that. Just at big, we'd have parties or get-togethers or whatever, shoot skeet, have a good time. And then kind of started dabbling with ARs and pistols and all this kind of stuff. And eventually just got really into it. And then just started trying to get really good at it. On the defensive side of the house, my background as far as defensive stuff and violence comes from, one, martial arts, and then two, for a long time I got into a lot of things that probably weren't so great, and had a bit of a rough couple of years doing a lot of bad stuff, and just kind of met people that I shouldn't have met, and started doing certain things. And then that really showed me a lot about violence, showed me a lot about predatory behavior, criminal psychology. I just learned a ton about that world. And then eventually, as I started getting really good at shooting, then I'm like, okay, I can start to apply some of that to all that knowledge of criminal psychology and violence, and start to meld all that together. And being in violence, I say something a lot. 60 seconds of fighting for your life will show you more than a lifetime of talking about it, right? Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden I started seeing this big gap where I was going to do some training classes or kind of the tactical world and the gunfight stuff, and I was seeing this big gap, why are we trying to learn all this stuff at one time? Why are we not separating these skills from these skills completely and just learning how to shoot like any other sport, and then we can apply it to whatever we need to later? So mm-hmm. in turn, that's how I came up with the name Applied Performance, is performance shooting applied to everyday carry, competition, military, law enforcement, whatever. And then that just slowly started taking a hold, slowly started teaching people here and there. And next thing you know, it was a thing. Putting it out on YouTube is just my way of kind of giving back to the 2A community, and then also just advertising. So mm-hmm. That's about it.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you've helped a lot of people. I mean, you've got I know it's not a lot of big number, but it's over 2,000 subscribers on YouTube right now. Last I looked, and you put out a lot of solid content that a lot bigger names in the industry are making you pay to get to even see. So, I mean, you're really bringing up the curve on everyone with the YouTube. And even though it's what you've learned, it's, it's really helping everyone out and bringing up the curve so that people don't have to struggle as hard in the beginning. And I know for my journey, it was a big struggle when I got into self-defense and even just carrying a gun and even shooting in general. It was a very big pond that you had to wade through, and all the bullshit you find, you have to wade through it, and you're not one of those sources. You're a source of good knowledge and no BS. And I'll just appreciate the no BS.
Yeah, that's the hard part when you start out, and that's what I saw was, man, there is so much stuff out there, and if we don't isolate it and really have specific things to work on in a specific order, then you're just chasing your tail for a long time. That's why it takes people 10 years to get good.
Mm-hmm.
It should only take a year or two.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And when I even talk to buddies locally or even on the line, when we start talking, I always say shooting is shooting, and we can add tactics, discipline, other skill sets into it, but we need to remember shooting is shooting. We still got to draw the gun, we still got to manipulate it, we still got to be efficient and fast. I mean, and then we got to worry about tactics and scenarios. But it's a big thing, and it's a big pond to wade through. All right, let's see.
Yeah, you can't learn how to play a sport all at once. You don't just show up in scrimmage, or if you're fighting, which fighting is fighting. If you break it down to core level, fighting hand to hand or fighting with guns, it's just fighting. And you can't learn how to fight well by just fighting, like going and getting your butt kicked over and over and over again. It'll teach you some things, but there's a much better way to learn if we isolate skills.
Yes, and in shooting, isolating those skills. I mean, down to the minutia and down to the micro drill, just like any other sport. You don't teach a guy to do layups all day in a game. We do layup drills and everything. I mean, where his feet's going to be, how he's going to put his arms up, and I don't know much about basketball, but still, I know that we got to break it down.
Right. Every sport is the same. Every athletic endeavor, shooting is no different.
Right.
Just because it's got a martial context or a place in violence doesn't mean it's any different.
Absolutely.
So.
Now, if you do training, you do mostly smaller classes. I know we'll get later on in the show, we're going to talk about your new endeavor that you're rolling out later in a couple months, right? We'll hit that hard, but who have you taken from training from, and why?
So I've taken a number of classes. Now, I don't talk about the people that I've trained with in my past, right? Because now I only go train with people who I see real benefit from their training, like Scott Jadlinski. I've taken classes with him. But I don't talk about all the classes that I've taken because I'm very critical of the training industry.
Right.
So one-on-one, I tell people about what classes I've taken and which ones I believed were the best or actually any good at all. And then, but I steer clear of talking about it, to tell you the truth. Now, I do plan on, I have Brandon Powers coming this year to do a class. Tim Herron in 2022, which I might end up taking one of his classes this year, but he'll be coming to my range 2022 in June. Then Donovan from Point One Tactics is a guy that I'm going to train with. There's a few other spec train, North Carolina, Billy Barton. He was supposed to come to a training class, but ended up getting freaking corona and stuff. So I have a lot of guys that I really look up to, or I really want to take classes from them, or I have even, but I just don't, I don't really get into it because I am critical of the training industry, and I don't want to put it out there that I've trained with this person or that person, and then people take it out of context if I say this is dumb or that's dumb, or people are ripping you off. Then they look, say, oh, well, he trained with this person, so he must be talking about that person, and I don't want that.
Gotcha.
Right?
No, and I respect that, and I mean it's your prerogative, and honestly, we need to be critical of the training industry because we can't always believe everything is told to us as this is the way. I know Scott says he has a way, it's not always the way. So you've got to really analyze for yourself what works for you and what really doesn't, and not believe everything is gospel. And I mean, the more we can do that, the better we'll become.
Yep.
And I'm lucky because I'm not very close-minded on anything, and I'll take anyone's advice, even a C-class shooter in Revolver. He might be the best freaking reloader in the world. I'm still going to listen to what he's got to say and evaluate it for myself.
Yeah, there's no. Well, one thing is also, I don't put stock in the amount of hours someone has taken training classes. I don't care about that one bit. I care about what you can do and what you can say to me right now. What comes out of your brain, not that you have 800 hours of formal training under this person and that person. Who cares?
Right.
I care about what you know, what's inside of your brain, and what you can show me right now. And that's about it. So that's one of the reasons I've steered clear of really naming the names of people, because I can tell you, it's kind of funny, the people that get a lot of hate, even like James Yeager, perfect example of a polarizing figure. Okay, I don't do anything the way that he does, right?
Right.
So as technique wise or just philosophy wise or any of that, I don't line up with him ever. But I can tell you that they do good classes. They have multiple instructors for the level of, for if they got 20 students or whatever, there's probably 3 instructors. So they do things in a way, yeah, they do it their way, but and a lot of people think, I don't know, that's one reason I just don't like to put it out there, because a lot of people will take it out of context and believe that you're saying things about somebody that you're not. And then also, it would be surprising if I told you who I thought was running the best training and who was running the worst. It'd probably surprise you. So it's just one of those things. Now, if I say that I'm going to train with someone, or if I, give a list of instructors that I really respect, then those are people that I've either trained with them, or I've seen enough of their material to know that they're like legit.
Right.
Where they have the same beliefs or some figure of it, some
right, something you can connect with and be like, yep, that makes sense, and it's not full of bullshit.
Right.
And I will say, you're gonna love Timmy. I've taken Tim's class in 2020. I've got another scheduled class in 2021. It'll be another awesome time. We're actually gonna do a 3-day format where he's actually gonna be at the match after the class. So we're all gonna squad with Tim and get to actually watch him shoot 6 stages of USPSA. It'll be fantastic. And
very cool.
Very cool. Yeah. My list is short of who I want to train with, but it's because of the vetting process I go through. I mean, I'll take those free nuggets and of information they put out on social media to judge, am I going to learn anything? Is it worth it? Or is it vastly different from what I already know, to see if it's good for me, essentially.
Yeah. That's where coming in like YouTube videos and stuff. Even Tim just the other day had a post on Instagram saying, what is given away too much? Right. And there's a line there. And for me personally, I think I will give out all the information, but I'm not going to give you the way I deliver it in a class, or the way the process in which I want to drive it into your head, right? The process in which we do this, and then we do this, and then we do this. I think the process should stay that's what you take the class for, to see how well they've put together the process to spin someone up. But the information, if you scour the internet, it's all out there already. There's nothing new under the sun.
Yep.
There's nothing new.
Yeah, like I was talking with Steve Fisher the other day, well, just today, and he's like, what is old is new, and what's new is old. It's just always, the cycle continues. Nothing is truly ever revolutionary.
No, not really. Now, there are certain concepts, and depending on what you're doing, USPSA or appendix or, whatever it might be, there are things that are new and cool over like the course of the last 5 years, maybe.
Yeah.
But there's never really anything that's just completely out of left field. I mean, everybody's basically doing the same stuff. You just need to figure out a better way to package it. And at a certain point, you're taking training classes just to see, like, how does Scott talk about this concept, right? So I'm going to be like paying attention. Okay, I talk about this concept this way. How does he do it? Like, how does he get everybody's heads wrapped around the same thing? And at a certain point, you're kind of taking classes just to see how other people do it. And then, I mean, if you're not using everybody else's stuff, then you're not using the best stuff out there.
Right. And I think Ernest Langdon puts it the best teachers are the best thieves. Yeah. And I mean, Scott says that all the time, and it's true. I think it's truly a good statement.
Yep. And that's where that process and information, because you cannot give out someone's process. Because that's like where it becomes not cool. Right? Like talking about different concepts, or if I'm talking, like one thing I use all the time that's Scott's is when somebody's having trouble finding the dot, you can kind of do that 12 to 6, because most people are muzzle high when they present, and then they drop down and find their dot by fishing around. But he has that 12 to 6 kind of presentation where you let the dot drop in from the top. You kind of go all the way out, and you'll see your dot fly. I use that all the time. But I would never give away like his process of teaching it, but I gotta use that concept. Like, it's too good not to use.
Right.
So, right. And then I have my own style of doing it that floats up from the bottom. And if you're just using the stuff that you think of, you're not using the best stuff. There's got to get more brains in the mix.
Right. And as you were commenting about Timmy, about giving too much away, and, people go to get your context and your process, how to do it. So even just sharing it on the internet as example for Tim, he was doing shot calling. Everyone needs to learn how to call their shots. You're not going to get in that 20-minute video exactly how he'll do it in a class, or how he describes it, or the personal instruction of him being right there, watching you do this drill, or observing you. I mean,
yeah, it's just not the same.
And the pressure, honestly. I mean, there's 10 times more pressure when you got someone staring at your back, analyzing your shooting. Yep.
And what's real pressure is demoing.
Oh, absolutely.
That's like, all right. I feel more pressure doing a demo in a class than I do running a stage in USPSA any day.
I have no problem with running a stage any day. I love going first. I love being the first one on a stage. Maybe not the first stage, but when they call my name on that one stage, I'm like, let's do this. Let's go.
Right. Yeah. Sometimes it's better to think about it less and just go.
I mean, I still put all the mental process, the mental game, and all the visualizations in, but it's like, let's show them. I don't care. Someone else could have a better stage plan than me, but I don't care.
Right.
All right, so now we've busted into USPSA. Do you want to share your classification at the moment, or do you want to keep that to yourself?
No, I don't give a shit. I think it's A at the moment. What I did for classification wise is I don't want to. So I was learning the game so quickly that I realized classification wise, I'm just not going to have any problem getting to the classification that I want. I could bet a lot of money that I'll hit GM before the end of this year. Right. So I know that that's coming. The only problem is I realized, all right, I have a huge amount of confidence in my classification abilities. what I need to do is shoot in matches to that level.
Mm-hmm.
So I started thinking about it in a different way, and it's actually been awesome. What I do now is the classifier comes, I shoot it at about 80% so that I can just be solid and roll right through, no big deal. And I just treat it like any other stage where
Mm-hmm.
I'm just rolling through. And it's one of those things where I think people are getting way too hung up on classification.
Mm-hmm.
At one side of the house, if I classify super well and then I'm going to matches and my actual stage work isn't as good as my classification, then you just look like an idiot.
Right. You
Like,
look like a paper GM. Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's not cool. So until I don't want to even go full bore on classifications until I get my gamesmanship kind of where I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Which this year, I mean, I did really well this year. I shot 10 matches and I won carry optics in 6 of them and finished second twice, I think. So doing really well for what I'm doing or for how much I've put into it. But USPSA, the game side of it is all I'm worried about. Like
Mm-hmm.
learning the real deal game of it and being able to shoot my full ability every stage.
Oh yeah. And for
It's just
myself, I'm kind of the same way. I've got this classification goal in mind, but it's more not necessarily to get the card. It's more of to have my full level be at that level as well. Shoot matches and shoot a stage like that blank level shooter, but
yeah.
have the piece of paper saying, yeah, you are that level of shooter, not just on a stand and shoot, or now we're getting into the little bit of movement on the classifiers, which I'm really enjoying with the new 20s and the
Yeah,
19s.
those are awesome. Now, mine, I would have already been M, but I had 2 classifiers thrown out for somebody bitching, I guess. I don't know what happened, but had a 99 and a 94 or something thrown out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just after that happened too, that kind of soured me because I was on like a really good roll. And then all of a sudden it happened, I'm just like, you know what? I'm not even worried about it. I'll just keep shooting my game and see what happens. And then I kind of thought, I better back up here.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, I mean, as soon as people stop putting so much pressure on a classifier to do well, they do perform better. You just follow the process. You follow what you know.
There's guys that are stuck in B class that are M class shooters.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's, I don't know what the classification system or why it just bothers people so much or gets in everybody's head or something, but I think way too much stock is put into it. And honestly, this year, kind of what I've talked about, I've talked to a couple people about this, talked to Rob Epifania about this, and he was like, get your classification at match bumps,
Mm-hmm.
right? So beat a bunch of masters, you'll get bumped. So
Mm-hmm.
Area 7, Area 8, Nationals, that's where I want to get mine from. That's kind of the new direction. Obviously, if it happens before that or whatever, I don't really care. But that's what I'm really going for, is to actually get match bumped instead of just shooting the classifiers well.
Right. And I mean, there is that alternative, that route. And some of us, like myself, aren't lucky enough to be able to allocate going to a lot of majors. This year, my shooting schedule, due to availability and price of ammo and components, is taking a big slash. It's
Right.
been, I thought maybe I'll get a major in. I don't even know if I'll get more than a couple locals in, because I'm not going to cancel a training class and learn the things I can do in practice and doing dry fire to get to that next level. I mean, yeah, I'd have ammo if I wasn't going to take a class, but I'd rather much take the instruction again and learn the next leaps and bounds before waste ballistic masturbation at a match, essentially, especially for a local.
Yeah, I treat matches a little bit differently than most people. I truly believe that local matches are practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I shoot every local match with a different intent. So kind of a different goal.
Mm-hmm.
but I am this year. I'll probably shoot less local matches and try to get to Area 7, Area 8. Those at least. I know I'm going to do those too, and then try to get to nationals for sure. Because I just want that. I want that big match pressure, like in that big match atmosphere. That's the one thing that I haven't really done. I want to see where I stack up against the best.
Oh, absolutely. And hopefully maybe 2022 I'd love to go hit the Michigan sectional, hit Area 5, which is, in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Area 8's in Virginia, isn't it?
West Virginia, yeah.
Oh, so that's still close for me. Then I can maybe hit Area 8. That's hopefully if things come back to a normalcy, we'll be able to compete some more. And Rob has been also a very great mentor and inspiration for me. I butcher his last name all the time, so I just call him Rob. But that's just how it goes.
Yeah, Epifania, I think is how you say it. Yeah, I talk to him a good bit nowadays on Instagram, just direct message back and forth, bullshitting about certain things. Just as far as like mental process and the amount of work he puts into dry practice and basically all the work he does off the range to get better, it's pretty inspiring to watch. So I've been kind of picking his brain on a lot of things. And
yeah, and I used to always talk to Rob, and then I realized that Rob's talking to like a million people. So if I have a question, I'll hit him up, but I don't. We used to talk like daily, but I'm like, he's got work, he's got other crap to do, he's got other people bothering him for more important than crap than I do. So
yeah,
and I'll check in with him.
Right, we talked about stuff like if I post something, then he'll be like, "Yeah, I do this," or I'll say something on his post, and then next thing you know, you end up bullshitting for an hour back and forth on there. So that's one of the biggest things that's helpful about social media and putting stuff out there. I've had conversations back and forth with like some people that I really respect in the game, and I'm not much of a social media kind of guy, but that's invaluable. That's awesome. I'm talking back and forth with Travis Tomasi about this or that, and we're having conversations once every, couple of weeks or something. Like, that's freaking awesome. And then getting some validation on my material from those guys is huge.
Oh, absolutely.
So
and Travis is one of the greatest shooters of his time, and still currently. I mean, he was training with Max back in Max's open days in the AMU before he went for SIG. And I mean, he's one of the he's always quoted as one of the nicest guys in shooting too. I think it's the bald head though. I mean, all those bald people are nice. They're either mean or nice.
Right.
Now, all right, let's see. So you said you're hoping what, Area 7, Area 8 and Nationals this year. What classes we've talked about. As an instructor, what keeps you teaching and what motivates you to keep developing yourself to be a better teacher?
Man, well, first of all, teaching makes you better at shooting, right? So as I'm trying to be a better teacher, I then, through osmosis, just become better at shooting too. Because one thing is, if I'm demoing things or even doing a video, I have to do things correctly. I can't preach and then do right. And so it drives me to be a better shooter all the time, so that no one's really going to watch any of my stuff. I'm not a national champion. Okay. I'm not JJ. I'm not Max Michelle. So who the hell am I? And I'm not law enforcement SWAT guy, and I'm not military guy. So what do I have to offer? Well, I better be really damn good at shooting. All right. I better be able to do it from appendix, from USPSA, and I better be able to just do the work that I'm trying to teach on command, on demand. So teaching, one, makes you better at shooting, and then two, there's nothing better than somebody saying that they've been struggling with something for a year, and they watched one video and all of a sudden it clicked, or taking training or something, and all of a sudden they, the best thing I can get is a text message that says, "Hey man, just made A class," or "Hey man, I just finally got out of B class and jumped to A," or "I won my local match." All these kind of things. That's what keeps you coming, and figuring out how to get the information into people's heads, because every instructor has a different way of talking, different way of presenting the information, and trying to solve that puzzle is it's super fun.
And even at my level, I love being able to give tidbits and nuggets to people that help them out. Even though I don't find myself to be a very experienced knowledge of instruction, and be able to, I know my classification, I know my skill level, and I'm not the best. So I don't try to say that I am, but I still try to help people where they at, but I don't push myself on anybody. If they ask me, I'll surely give them an answer, but I don't go out my way and comment on people's videos saying, "Oh, you should do this," because it's not my place, nor is it my MO.
Yep. And that's something that I rarely ever will give unsolicited advice. Like every once in a while, and the only reason I don't more often is because it's usually taken the wrong way. So even if you try to be really nice about something, or just suggests like a different style of doing something, and be like, give this a try, people still don't take to it very well. So I try to stay away from that. And that's why I really started my own YouTube channel and stuff. Is, well, I'll just put out what I want to put out and see if people are, digging it or not. So
absolutely. And speaking of YouTube, I found you on YouTube, and you started doing the online remote trainings, and you've been doing that for what, almost 2 years now? Is it, if not longer?
Yeah, it's been a while. 2 years. I started off with just some friends and some beta testers, right? And then eventually just kind of got it to the point where it is now, where it's smooth, simple. I did 2 of them today, so pretty easy to do. And all it is one guy today was pretty damn slick, to where I'm kind of searching, trying to really get him to put on. We're trying to go from like a 1.2 or 1.3 draw from appendix to a 0.9, right? That's tough. It's hard to get that little bit. Whereas the guy from earlier, he was more okay, just figuring everything out, wanted to start from scratch, take a little bit of training, get a better understanding of dry practice as a whole. So we're talking about grip, we're talking about presentation, really simple things, picking the pistol up off the table, a little bit of draw stuff. But it's cool how far you can, somebody can be a day one beginner, or somebody who's pretty slick and wants to just get a little bit better. It's pretty helpful. Then dry practice right now, it's about all people are going to get with the ammo situation. So you got to figure out ways to get better. But when I'm watching you do your thing, I can pick up on so many easy little things that we can fix right here and now. Than if I give you a video, or it's just not the same. And then obviously it's not quite the same as in person, but it's the next best thing.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be within these next years, it's going to be more big names are going to be doing this kind of thing. I know a lot of them were doing it during the major lockdown the first time, kind of doing the thing, trying to dabble in it. But I think it's the next wave of training, at least on the personal level. So then people feel comfortable with that instructor, say, "All right, let's host you out for a class, figure something out." And it's the next step to getting into the more training, which is an awesome thing.
Yeah, and one of the 2 from today was in California. So we're doing it all the way across the country, and we're talking about dry fire and how to get better movement patterns, and
Mm-hmm.
you can cover so much in dry practice. Like,
Mm-hmm. The only thing you
so,
really can't do with a gun is recoil management until you get an airsoft or a cool fire trainer. And those aren't truly 100% equatable to your gun, but it's still getting you used to recoil, because I know if I don't go shoot at least 5 rounds or so, I'm going to forget what recoil is, you know.
yeah, it's gonna surprise you a little bit,
And you
and
don't
that
want to
that
be a dry fire GM, but a C-class shooting a gun, right?
right, and that happens. That happens. Um, that's another thing. Like in this ammo crisis right now, if you can get to the range more often and
Mm-hmm.
shoot less ammo, you're going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
So even if it's 50 rounds a week, if you can ration 200 rounds a month and go to the range 50 rounds a week, and dry practice in between.
Mm-hmm.
So dry practice at the range has been the number one thing for me. This last, I've taken about a 2 month break. I take big breaks,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm still dry practicing and stuff, but I don't find it a big detriment if I take big breaks. I think it's actually kind of nice. But anyway, if you can ration out and get to the range more often, dry practice in between reps, and then do stuff at the range that's very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ask a lot of yourself for those 50 rounds. And
Right.
I think you could maintain the exact amount of skill or make huge gains depending on how accountable you can be and how focused you can be while you're trying to do that little bit of work.
Absolutely. And I find it the best is when you can have it go with a plan, try not to wing. You can't really wing it right now when this ammo's so bad, but you got to at least have a plan. I mean, but unless you have some very bad thing you've noticed that you need to work on and address immediately, stick to your plan and work on it.
Yep. Yep. And if you think about it, throttle control
Mm-hmm.
and acceptable sight picture, throttle control, calling shots, those are all the things that we can't really do in dry practice. I mean, the recoil control aspect of it is kind of the most simple, but those are the things that we lose in dry practice. And one thing in dry practice is try to mimic live fire.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just whack your trigger,
Mm-hmm.
right, at every target. You don't do that in live fire because you wouldn't be hitting. So
Right.
really think, okay, if this is simulating a 15-yard target, I'm going to be bang, bang, and go. Not bang, 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 bang. So
Mm-hmm.
be accountable in dry practice and think, if this thing was actually recoiling right now, what would my splits be like? And be really, in tune with yourself and accountable. It's so many people, they get a false sense of what they're able to do from dry practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get to the range and the times are just nowhere near what they should be. And all of a sudden it's like, oh man, I suck. And confidence is everything.
Oh yeah, that confidence, or how Steve Anderson puts it, the self-image from Lanny Basham. It's a big thing. It's something people need to be looking into. I just took mental management with Steve Anderson 2 weeks ago, and I
Yeah.
took a lot out of that online seminar. It was really wonderful, and it helps you kind of if you have those issues, it helps you fix yourself or unlock the potential that you could not be accessing if otherwise. I don't really believe I agree with Steve, and I don't believe in say I suck or beating
Right.
myself up over something. I'm going to accomplish myself and say, well, I did awesome at this. I'm drawing the gun this fast. I'm doing what I can do well. I'd see that I can correct these things and they need to be better, but I'm not going to say I suck. Why am I not hitting? What's wrong with me?
Yep.
And that's a big thing in the learning process too. If you always beat yourself up, what's going to make you want to go out and practice?
Yep. So I usually tell people that I want to leave the range feeling like a rock star. One range visit, and then the next one, maybe I leave a little disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I can't always feel like I'm killing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to kind of balance that. Okay, well, maybe I leave the range feeling really good this range visit, but the next time I'm going to do something so difficult or give myself some kind of silly par time that I want to hit. And when I don't hit it, hey, I know I'm capable of doing that. If everything is perfect, I should be able to run an El Presidente from concealment sub 4.5 seconds all day, every day. And I know I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just say, all right, I'm going to do that at the end of the range visit. And guess what? I pulled 3 Charlies. Well, now I can leave just a little bit disappointed and say, all right, even though that's kind of a crazy part time, it's a hard thing to do, I still didn't perform what I was actually capable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
So just giving yourself some sort of carrot to chase.
Right.
But positive self-image and always feeling a little cocky is good.
Mm-hmm.
Huge.
Right. And it's not necessarily, and it's not that you don't want to go out and test yourself, because you really do, but don't always let your failures or missed opportunities set your tone of all, it's one of those things. You just got to stick with what you got, be positive about it, and don't beat yourself up, because that has put a lot of high level shooters where they're at, and they're not be able to get to the top because they've kicked their ass so long and get
Oh,
themselves in a funk.
how many guys have you seen right before a classifier say that this is going to be a shit show or something like that?
Oh, every time I go to a match, they was like, I suck at classifiers. I'm like, why do you say that? I say I love shooting classifiers. I love going first.
Yeah. Or say, this is a classifier that I should crush,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like looking at the classifier, whatever it might be, and say, this is something that I should crush right now. And maybe you screw it up, maybe you don't, but self-defeating kind of talk is, man, it's huge.
Mm-hmm.
And confidence is everything. Trying to mimic the confidence that you have on the range when nobody's watching, trying to really just turn that switch in your head, turn everything off, and say, okay, it's time to do the work. And that's something that everybody struggles with. I do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a level that I know I can do, and it's every single classifier in the classifier booklet. I know I can 100% every one of them. I've done it on the range. Doing it in a match when it counts, when it's your one and only chance, that's different. Like, it's difficult. And shooting competition wouldn't be any fun if it was easy. So
right. Or you got to be rich, because you could pay $5 every time you want to reshoot it. And
I've never reshot one. Even malfunctions, like my first couple classifiers, I had a Glock store spring, and they actually sent me an 11-pound spring. So for 2 whole matches, I was like fighting this weird malfunction that would come out of nowhere, and the recoil spring was too light, and when the trigger bar hit, it would actually move the slide back, and I'd get like a light primer strike out of nowhere. So for 2 whole matches, I should have reshot some classifiers there at the beginning, but I said, screw it, I'm not going to ever shoot one. I'm never going to reshoot a classifier. Either I do it right then and there, or I don't.
Right. And I've been lucky. I've only had to reshoot one stage in my competition career due to a missed small steel. And I'll say that's pretty lucky, because yeah, it sucks when you put all your mental effort into doing that one run and you're like, well, I want to reshoot because I didn't do as well because my mental process said there's a target over here, and you go by it. I'm like, where are you? And you realize it's down, and it's like,
yeah,
and it's
that's why it's so fun.
I don't mind reshooting, but I'm glad you don't always have to reshoot. And another note was videoing yourself and being able to self-diagnose is so big, and the fact of slow-mo, like, and you think you're doing a reload out here and you're keeping the gun up, you slow-mo that bitch and you're like, what? I wasn't 6 inches deeper, but the video don't lie.
Yep. Video is something that so many people, like, we talk about it. I've talked about it 100 times, but the guys so many people who do remote training with me.
Mm-hmm.
First things first, we talk on the phone a little bit, and I kind of get their goals of what they want to do, and whether it's USPSA or concealment work or what their goals are. And then I tell them, okay, send me a little clip of what you're doing now in dry practice, right? Like what you kind of do, your nightly routine or whatever. A couple draws, reloads, transitions, stuff like that. And often that's the first time they've ever watched themselves, is when they're sending me a video, and then they've already diagnosed a few things. So when I bring it up to them, like, hey, see how you're doing this? They're like, yeah, I saw that. And I'm like, how much video actually matters? Because a lot of the time, proprioception, our perception of our own body in space, proprioception, right? It's a $10 word. All it means is, can you feel what your body's doing in space? Well, most of the time, we're not that great at it. And some people are really good at it. Some people are not. So it doesn't mean that the person who's really good and has really, really solid proprioception, it doesn't mean that they're going to be a better shooter. It just means that they can feel something or fix something a little bit quicker. So if I tell you that you're winging this elbow up or this shoulder up or something, some people just can't tell that they're doing that until they see it on film. And then they see it on film and they're like, yeah, I see exactly what you're talking about, and they can start to fix it. But that's so, it's one of the biggest things, and it's made me, from doing YouTube videos and stuff, it's made me a better shooter simply because I'm always watching myself shoot.
Right. Absolutely.
And also, to add to that, stages are not good enough. Watching yourself shoot a stage is not good enough. So most of the time we're getting video of someone watching themselves shoot a stage. It's not the greatest camera angle. It's from behind. You're not really seeing exactly what you're doing. You're not really seeing, unless you get lucky enough that the RO isn't standing in the middle of the way, or you got a good enough angle where you can actually see, like, are you coming into position, gun up? Are you reloading down here? Is your chin tucked while you're trying to run around, do stuff? You don't see a lot of that. So filming your dry practice for your static, regular old work, and then filming your dry practice for movement, filming your dry practice for any manipulation, and filming your live fire practice void of matches, right? Like not just match video. And then film the match video and try to put all that together and say, okay, am I doing the same work at the match that I am at the range? Because we need to get our range work and our dry practice work on point. Then the match stuff just isn't that hard. Like, I shot my first USPSA match, and 3 matches later, I won my first USPSA match. So it's not that hard once you learn how to shoot real good.
Right.
Like putting it together with the game side of it, yeah, there's a million little things you need to know to be at the top level. But if you can just shoot really fast, reload really fast, work the gun real fast, you're going to be real good real quick at USPSA. So,
yeah. And the name of the game is consistency too. I mean, if you can have a stellar stage and kill it, but you have a shitty stage the next, you have no chance of winning. But if you bring the consistency level up and even not even blaze it down and be, at 80%, 90% and stay there the whole match, you're going to win that match. Nationals, I think, can be won if you take 5th through 8th on every stage. If you're just consistent and just take those 5th and 8th slots, you're going to win because, I mean, unless you're going against, Seiler pretty much is like Max Michel right now, taking pretty much the top slot, if not number 2, number 3. He's very consistent at that high level, but he also still does have those. I looked at Nationals on the competitor app. He had a 53rd on a stage. So, I mean, that could have killed him.
Well, one no shoot, one bullet. flying the wrong direction, and that's a big difference at the top.
The one bullet, 1/2 a second, 1 foot fault, anything.
Yeah, just a slip or a fumble of a mag, any little thing, because some of those stages are so high hit factor too that if you make the right mistake on the right stage, all of a sudden you go from being in the top 10 to a 50th place on that stage. I mean, it means everything. Local matches, I usually have one stage that I completely ruin, but I can shoot fast enough on all the rest of them to do well. You know what I mean? So my consistency is just not there yet as far as stage planning goes, but I can shoot fast enough to make up for it.
Absolutely.
And it comes from confidence. One big thing, my new class that I've just developed is all about letting yourself go, like letting it go, and sending it to the instinctual level inside of you, because there's so many people that shoot competition and they let it get in their head, whether they know it or not. On some subconscious level, they're not letting it fly to their own ability, and yeah, we want to tone it down maybe to 90%, where most people are toning it down to like 60%. And it's like, man, just send it. Just let go of all your over confirmation and all your inhibition and all your insecurities. Let it fly. As soon as that buzzer goes off, you're Superman.
Oh,
Just
absolutely. And you should let it rip. Now, speaking of your 2-day class, do you want to give a little bit a teaser of what that is? What could you expect in that kind of course?
Yeah, it's I'm pretty proud of it. I have not put out, I've been doing this teaching stuff for a while now, but I have 1-day class, I have a carbine class, and then I do a lot of privates. As far as a 2-day full-on class, I've never put one out, because I wanted to build one from scratch that is like jam-packed. And I don't know about you, but I've been to a lot of classes where the first day is basically the same class as every other class you've ever taken, and the second day gets into some cool stuff. Have you noticed that?
I could agree with on that level. Yep.
Right. Like sometimes you go to a 2-day class and it's like, all right, today we're going to go over fundamentals, and then tomorrow we'll do some dynamic stuff, or whereas this class, the performance shooting and tasking class, is meant for people who are like already shooting USPSA. It doesn't matter if you're D class or GM, but you already understand the concepts of kind of USPSA. You understand safety, and so we don't really have to start at square one, right? We can start the first day right off the bat, and it's performance shooting and tasking. So basically, I've broken it down between me and a bunch of other people, how long each physical task takes, and how long and how to initiate tasking off of shooting. So if you think about it, just on the static stuff, the simple stuff, reloading the pistol physically only takes about 1/2 a second. So most people are probably, if we just averaged it out, most people are probably around like a 1.5 second reload, right? 7 yards, shot to shot. Most people are probably around 1.5. That's what I've seen. Where's that whole second going? If it only really takes about 1/2 a second or even 3/4 of a second to physically load that gun, then where's the other 3/4 of a second going? It's the initiation. It's going from shooting, boom, into the task. It's going from the task back, bang, to the shooting. And then we take that concept and apply it to the draw, reload, transition from target to target, movement, everything. So if you think about it, there's only 2 parts to shooting. Shooting, where that's where the gun is going off, and tasking. That's reloads, draws, movement, transitions, all that stuff. So that class is basically trying to blend all those together so you can start to get silly times out of what you're doing. Because if I sit there, and one of the things that I do in the class that the best demo that I can do is I do a real slow hand speed demo. So I actually move my hands real slow, but we do a Blake drill, and more often than not, I can still beat people by a second and move my hands real slow.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of proves to them like, okay, you moved your hands way faster than me, and we shot the same splits, but somehow I was still faster. Now, how the hell does that work? And then you
Right.
realize, oh, it's the initiation from tasking back to shooting, from shooting back to tasking, transition, like, and then we just go deep into the weeds on all that stuff, and trying to see more, see everything. I've got a 3-step entry thing that I've been working on for a long time. That's not only a footwork thing, but it's actually like a 3-step setup thing, and all this stuff I've been really going hard on this year. It's a pretty cool class. I've got it to where day one we start hammering and we work shooting, the shooting side of it a good bit, and some static stuff. And then day two, really start to break into how to initiate the tasking and get out of positions quicker, how to basically shoot more at an instinctual level and not over confirm everything and just all that waste of time. Nobody really thinks, where is the time going, right? But there is chunks and chunks of time. And what I'm big on, and I think USPSA and the practice and training for USPSA as a whole, and this is from appendix, the class is from anything. USPSA is just an easy way to kind of talk about stuff.
Right.
But people are chasing tenths when there are seconds laying everywhere. That's the whole class in a nutshell. Like, I'm going to show you how to get a whole second out of a 4-second drill. Okay? Now imagine taking that into a 20-second stage. Now that's a 14-second stage. Right? Like, stop chasing tenths and start looking at all these seconds laying all around, and let's grab them seconds, and then we'll chase the tenths once we get really cooking on the rest of it. So that's basically the thing I see the most of in practice and training is everybody just trying to get a tenth off their draw or a tenth off their reload. And it's like, man, there is so much more out there to gobble up before we get to that point. So.
Yeah, and I agree. Do all the gun handling as fast, the non-shooting parts as fast as you possibly can. Well, efficiently. I'm not going to say fast, efficiently. One thing I've had to tell myself is not to say fast. Try to not to say fast in a shooting context, because it does get some mumbo jumbo and you think a little differently. And sooner rather than sooner. Just shoot sooner. Do everything sooner rather than faster.
Yep, and that's the big thing. I hate to say that because so many people say it now.
Yeah, but
it just makes sense.
Well, and it's simple concept. It's like, well, you don't have to do anything real fast. You just need to initiate it faster. Sooner. Like sooner. And it's very hard. I've been trying to break that F word, like it's a swear word, but it's truly, if you think sooner rather than later, and you're going to be able to get it. And training now is going to be better than training later,
Yeah. That's the whole thing. Like, when I do that demo and I move my hands real slow, okay, I'm inserting my new mag, coming up, and bang, right? Where you're going, bang. That was a half a second or 0.3 of a second just in that tiny little pause. So initiation sooner. It's a big concept, but the big deal is, how do you take that sooner thing and apply it to every piece of what you're doing? Like, there's so many concepts. Just think about transitions. There's 14 different things that we can talk about to get you to be able to transition the gun better. If you think about throttle control and acceptable sight picture and attacking versus control targets and stability coming into position, like there's 100 micro concepts for every macro concept. So macro concept being shoot sooner, do everything sooner, try to get everything done sooner. And then there's 100 micro concepts in there to get you better at actually doing that. So you can, because if you just tell somebody to shoot sooner, that does no good.
Absolutely.
That's not helping at all.
And that's where, right. And it's all about the context too. You know, what we're working on, you know, and that's why they go to training from you, Tim, and anyone else out there who's performing at a high level to get that knowledge, to get that context, to get what they need out of it instead of fumbling through the muck.
Right. It's a tough deal. So the one good thing is there's more and more people on board than ever. Like switched on, kind of thinking, okay, competition shooting won't get you killed because it's simply just a thing to get you better at shooting. It doesn't have anything to do with gunfighting or anything like that. It's just going to make you better at shooting.
Right.
That's a war. That's a battle for hearts and minds to try to understand. Look, you wouldn't go into a boxing gym and say, hey, hitting that heavy bag doesn't hit back, like blah, blah, blah. That's not why we're doing it.
Right.
Because this is a separate thing. We're trying to get better at the things that make up what we need to potentially use this thing in a martial context. But and there are definitely certain things that you want to I try to say to always have a little bit of martial context in the back of your head. So if you're training certain things, always have just a little bit of like, is this straight up gamer stuff? Or is this actually applicable somehow to self-defense? Because I do want to kind of have a line there somewhere, because there is certain things that go too far down the gamer road, where it's like, okay, there's a discussion there, but that's very, very little. There's very little things that actually happen that way.
Right.
So,
and that's a lot to the stage planning and how you're going to work a stage and whatnot, in some of the little nuances that are gamer.
Yeah. And just even the way we manipulate the pistol in certain ways, like, there's very few and far between things that are actually different martial context to gaming context, but there is a few. Big thing is, the better you are at shooting and moving and problem solving with a gun, which is basically USPSA, it's just a problem solving thing, and the gun is the problem solver. Right? We got to put holes and stuff. So the better you are at doing that, the better you're probably going to be if you ever have to do it in an actual fight. So I don't get too wrapped up around the axle on stuff like that, but that is one place where having a little bit of experience, kind of fighting for your life in real violence, that's taught me so much. Like, I was able to wade through the bullshit, really. Like, there's so much nonsense out there, and I had already done it a couple of times and fought for my life in real deal situations where I'd come out of it with a couple of stab wounds and some really horrific stuff. And that was always so easy for me to be like, nah, that's silly. Like, you wouldn't do that in a gunfight. That would never come up. Why? Because you're in a gunfight. Like, all the little internet arguments back and forth, whether or not you should do this, or a light's going to get you killed, or competition will kill you. And, like, none of that stuff matters when it really comes down to fighting for your life. Very little does. So that'll let you wade through some stuff pretty quickly. And about 90% of what people argue about is total nonsense.
Absolutely. It's just
Not a,
mm-hmm.
And if you listen to guys like Steve Fisher, listen to guys like Mike Pannone, they don't talk about all that little nuanced bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Like the stuff that people argue about different gear, or whether or not this will happen or that'll happen. Like that it just doesn't, you don't have time to think about that kind of stuff. It's non-applicable. It doesn't come up. And that's not what's going to matter. The stuff that does matter and what doesn't matter actually surprises you. Most of the time when I hear someone who's never been in real violence, they're actually saying more than what they should be saying. So being in real violence and having some experience in that, you actually realize how little things do matter, right? So you're not worried about as much because it's kind of, it just doesn't apply. It doesn't come up.
Mm-hmm.
If you hear somebody talking about, you wouldn't want this little thing or that little thing to happen in a gunfight, it's like, man, that's the last thing that you're ever going to be thinking of. There's just no way. So I hear a lot of people talking about a lot of things, and it's immediately clear to me that they've never been in real violence. They have no clue what it is actually like. And just watch where you get the information from on that side of the house, because there's so much nonsense out there. So much.
Yes, there is. And it's but people's due diligence to like vet your instructor, vet your information. You've got to do your research. If you don't, you're not making it any better, and you're giving more and putting more crap out there, or letting the muck still survive when it needs to be pushed out of the pond.
Yeah, that's tough too, though. Like you hear, people set us back all the time. Just think about trigger reset, stuff like that. All those little concepts and techniques that we know. Okay, people that try to get their craft to a very high level can teach it better to you because they've already went down every road, right? Like someone who's really trying to get really good at shooting, they've already went down those roads to figure out what works and what doesn't. Someone who's already been in real violence, they've already went down those roads and found out what really matters and what doesn't. So when you have a lot of people coming up with little trinket stuff, and even just as something as stupid as reset shooting, those instructors or those people really haven't went down the roads yet to find out how to get really, really good at shooting. So they think that the thing that they're teaching is good. They just don't know what they don't know. So if they're teaching reset shooting, they haven't explored it far enough to realize that that's a flawed technique, that technique leads to more waste than efficiency. All these different things. Until you find out, when you're trying to vet instructors or see if, one, they can do the thing, and two, they've been there or done that to what they're trying to teach you. And oftentimes less is more.
Absolutely.
Like,
keep it simple, stupid.
Yes. When you are fighting for your life, the only thing that can go into your brain is stupid stuff. Okay? Like simple, stupid stuff. And when you listen to, somebody like Fisher, he's not going to entertain all this little nonsense. It's just gonna be like, no, that's stupid. Let's stop that right now. That's silly. This is all you need to think of, just like malfunctions. When you got instructors talking about level 7 malfunction clearance and stuff like that, it's like, do you think for 1 second that anybody's going to remember all those little steps and stupid shit between this kind of malfunction, a level one, an A malfunction, a B malfunction, a C malfunction, a D. Like, dude, get out of here. The thing
Mm-hmm.
don't work. I'm gonna beat the hell out of it till it does. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to unload it, and then I'm going to reload it, and then I'm going to go back to work. That's the stupid stuff that goes into your head when you're actually fighting for your life. So
Absolutely.
all that little that tactical talk and all that stuff, man, it is useless.
And it always comes from the people who have no idea what they're talking about, and they just want to be on that perch. And
It really is, and sometimes the people have a background that I guess their resume, I don't know, it's hard. I mean, I don't want to say certain things, but sometimes, someone has a resume that says they know more than what they're actually. Because if you're let's say you're a military guy, let's
mm-hmm.
say you got this good military resume, but now you're teaching civilians and law enforcement how to shoot. One, teaching shooting classes about getting.
This actually is me editing this interview with Joel, and for some reason when I downloaded the minutes on this video, and I really apologize, guys. We were just talking about instructors kind of staying in their lane and kind of vetting your instructor, and it really cut out the best question I had, and that was the thing I stole from Jedi's podcast. What's something that people can stop doing or start doing to get better? And that's what summarizing it down. Joel said to learn to take seconds off and stop digging for those tenths where you have seconds to gain. We talked about that earlier in the show, but I do apologize for this. Some just mishap on the software download. I apologize, guys, and I hope you have a great day. And thank you for checking out Manny Talks Shooting with Manny. I had Joel on this time from Applied Performance Shooting again. Check him out on Instagram and YouTube. He's got 2 great channels to check out, guys. I really appreciate it. Till next time, get out there and be shooting. We'll catch you on the next one.